Welcome to the Fright Lab. I'm Lucas Yoakum, and with me today, as always, is my favorite co-host, Joe Safren. Joe, we just watched a movie. This is yet another live reaction, kind of just immediately after the fact. We watched a movie called Reset, and we're going to try not to reset too many times throughout this, because that would be stylistic, and we're just not that kind of show. So,
and though I normally will go after the obvious joke of, Lucas, you need to do that one again, to keep with the theme of the film, I am going to let that one slide for now and save that for a later conversation.
Good.
But I think this movie works. And I want to give you the first opportunity to talk about what it is, because this movie, release date yet to be confirmed. So when you're hearing this episode, know that the film is either coming out shortly or it has recently been released. We don't know yet when you'll be hearing this, but we want to avoid spoilers because this is a film to be experienced. The runtime is not that much. You're not going to be stuck in your seat for 2.5 hours trying to figure out, what is this movie trying to tell me? Lucas.
Okay, so the film Reset, directed in 2024 to be released this year by writer, director, producer Michael Yamin. And if I've mispronounced that, he'll correct us in about an hour, so it'll be fine. If you just look at the poster for the film, which we will include definitely in the social media portion of our sharing of this, you're looking at this and you're thinking, okay, sci-fi horror, got it. And you wouldn't be wrong. It is definitely a sci-fi horror, I will grant. But it's not just a sci-fi horror. To be blunt, Reset is the kind of indie horror joint that I'm kind of always yammering about. It is a movie that is taking a lot of weird risks. It is a movie that is punching over its weight class. It is a small production. It is not, the next big thing from a director who you've heard of a million times. Instead, it's going to come under the radar and it's going to surprise you. And I can't say this enough. Go watch this movie. We're not going to spoil it. We're not going to do that. This is a very off-the-cuff reaction for us. So we're going to try not to talk about what the film means too terribly much. But I am going to say, if you can, or when you can, pause this episode, go watch it, then come back. And no, that's not going to be an excuse for us to use a silly little ditty we put in every time we talk about you pausing a movie. So, I want to set a scene for you. And in doing so, I'm not spoiling anything. So, it's middle of nowhere, rural America. It's a house anywhere on a road in middle of nowhere, rural America. If you've driven through middle of nowhere, rural America, you know exactly the house I'm talking about. But somewhere in this stretch of acreage is something dark. Something evil is happening every night. And you are slowly but surely watching a man who by any other measure would probably be a pretty normal dude in a lot of ways, slowly but surely not only battle some sort of force of darkness, but also battling himself. Or is he? And that's one of the reasons I'm going to recommend that you go see Reset right off the bat. This movie is not what you expect. This movie is not about what you think it's about. Not immediately. We are very much looking forward to recording an interview actually with Michael Yamin here pretty shortly. And we're going to record it. Of course, you guys are going to hear that conversation because I'm really looking forward to him not answering questions for me because I don't expect that of a director, but rather that I just want people to understand when we're talking about indie horror, we're talking about movies like this. We're talking about Ben Bigelow's Thine Ears Shall Bleed. We are talking about films that you're not ready for. And when you turn it on, you're going to think in 20 minutes, oh yeah, I've seen this movie before. No, you haven't. No, you haven't. I want to back off the mic for a second here and kind of throw it to Joe because I know that this movie kind of struck me. And I'm going to bring this up with the director, of course, but there is a part of me that was very actually emotionally affected by the movie because I felt like there was some messages in it that were really universal.
You are not kidding, my friend.
So yeah, I want to throw it to Joe. What was your immediate reaction after watching it?
after watching it, there has been some loss in everybody's life. And if you can say with all sincerity that there has not been loss in your life, just wait a little longer. It comes for all of us. It's not always a bad thing, but it always feels like a bad thing. When you start watching this movie, you're going to think it is a flat, one-dimensional, I've seen it before, to your point before. It will not take long for the film to escalate, and I dare say the 77-minute runtime is appropriate. It gets to the point quickly and doesn't leave you hanging on with some unnecessary dialogue and character study. It tells you what you need to know, and then it tells the story. And I appreciate that it didn't really explain everything to me by the end of the film. I was a little frustrated by that, but I think the theme is very relevant to everyone that has had some loss in their life.
Yeah, and, Joe is not spoiling anything by saying that, because really in the first, I'm going to say like 15, 20 minutes, even, I'm going to say 10, 15 minutes, actually, you're going to see the setup, but it doesn't give you anything, right? It's this very weird, twisty thing. A lot of movies that I end up watching feature kind of small casts. For some reason, and I know Joe is going to groan at this, but I've been thinking a lot about a movie that has shown up on the show before, Beyond the Black Rainbow. It feels so much bigger because of the way the movie is filmed and because of the setting that the film is in. But in reality, that is a microcast. There is almost no one in the... A good way to think about that movie is that of the major characters, you only see like 3/4 of them have faces. The majority of the movie is very living in the vibe and not offering much. There's an upcoming episode that we're actually about to record also, where I describe myself as a fan of no thoughts, vibes only kind of movies. And I think this movie plays on that level or plays with that on one level, but it is not that kind of movie. I think that something that the director, Michael Yamin, really pulled off well was, what's the word I'm looking for here? He pulled off a very thought-provoking film that is shockingly not trying to drive a single point home. I think a lot of times when a director or just an artist kind of broadly has a message that they're getting at, it is very easy for it to become a little ham-handed, to become a little ham-fisted. And I felt like this movie is, in its surrealism, in its darkness, in its violence, it is weirdly ecumenical. And that's a weird description, I admit, but it is the only way I can describe it, is that there are a lot of ways to read this film, and that's not because the film isn't saying anything. It's because the film is saying a lot and leaving some doors open behind it. This movie did extremely well when it's played in the festival circuit. Specifically, it made its world premiere at Amazing Fantasy Fest and secured 5 awards: Best Feature, Best Director, Best Female Performance, Best Male Performance, and Best Special Effects. Critics who have been talking about this movie have also praised the lead actor, a guy named Adam Hawley, for his performance. And we're going to bring this up with the director, but I've got to say it here. I am a little weirded out that the main character is a bearded guy who wears flannels named Lucas. That bothers me for some reason. I'm just saying, those of you who have watched us on social media have noticed there's a trend there. But no, and Adam Hawley really did very, very well with this character. And I'm really looking forward to talking to the director about how he fleshed this character out, because he's the one you spend the most time with, for lack of a better term. It is a very, very bleak movie in a lot of ways, but it's bleak in that way that is affecting and not just crushing. Recently, I rewatched Greg Araki's The Doom Generation. I don't know if you remember that one, Joe. It was kind of the movie that introduced Rose McGowan to the world, which, you know, she's great. I'm a big fan of her as an actress. But the ending is just fucked and is just brutal from wall to wall, and it leaves you feeling kind of hollowed out after you watch it. And I guess maybe it's not really helpful if I say Reset, a sci-fi horror film, is nothing like Greg Araki's The Doom Generation. I admit that is not an apples to oranges comparison. That's an apples to combat boots comparison. It's total nonsense. But it is a very intense, very dark, and sometimes bleak movie. But it is that sort of intense and dark and bleak that gets you thinking and makes you ask what you actually know. So, yeah, this is, again, it's a hard one to talk about because whenever you're trying to explain the plot of a film, you run the risk of spoiling it. But I think if I explain the plot to you, there's not a way to spoil it because it is so open and there is a little ambiguity. It doesn't spoon feed you much. There's a couple of spots where you have to at some point show your hands as a director, unless you're going to totally try to Panos Cosmatos, David Lynch your way through the ordeal, which
they do, at a few points throughout the film.
They do. But unless you're Panos Cosmatos or David Lynch, that's actually very hard to pull off. I don't know. I'm trying to find in my head Joe, have you ever seen the movie Angel Heart?
I have not.
Oh, good God. You fucking cinematic illiterate. How have you not seen Angel Heart? Oh, God. Okay,
well,
so
let's do this. We probably should have done this at the start of the episode. Let's watch the trailer.
Okay, great.
If you're listening to this, you haven't given up. You can't. We have to bring her home.
Edie's that you.
Eden didn't go missing. She was taken. Whatever they are, those four like to watch.
Watch?
Every night they send something through. Something monstrous. If I have to, I'll do whatever it takes to bring her home.
They're coming. It doesn't matter how many of those things you kill, it won't bring her back.
Man, watching that again, having now just watched the film, right? Watching that again, it is so interesting to me. I mean, it shows that editing is really an art form in and of itself. One.
Absolutely.
I already know that as a podcaster and as a fan of film. I'm aware that editing is its own kind of animal. And also, editors don't get paid near enough. Joe has to... I
agree.
Joe has to edit around me constantly, and I don't know why he keeps doing it, actually.
Now that you know what the filmmaker wants you to know before you see the film, remember earlier when I said that this film is not one-dimensional. My friend, the creature work was phenomenal.
I really did enjoy. Again, we're not spoiling anything. It's in the trailer.
It's not CGI. Yeah, it's a man in a suit, and I love it.
There is a man in a giant fuck-off monster suit, and it is covered in what I'm guessing is KY. I think it's some sort of lubricating gel of some variety. All I can say is that this movie does something that I deeply love, and that is it makes its monsters goopy. I like a monster that looks wet, and I probably should talk to my doctor actually about that now that I'm saying that into a microphone. But no, it's the creature effects are a lot of fun. They're big and they're goopy and they're scary, and that's always enjoyable. And oh man, it's so difficult to talk about editing in that regard too, because the movie is not, I don't know, in a way the filmmaking feels old because it is not a lot of jump cuts. It's not a lot of quick rapid fire things to cover the film. It kind of shows you a lot from the get-go. It's another thing that I've been really enjoying about the kind of trip down indie film the way it's gone for me in the last few years. I remarked this about one of my favorite kind of indie joints, Bad CGI Sharks. Fans of the show will already have no doubt heard that episode and that interview. One of the things I like about that movie is that for as silly of a premise and over the top as the acting is, there is a lot of really good fundamental kind of camera shots. The cinematography, the photography of it is really classical, is really old school Hollywood filmmaking on a micro budget, I'll grant, but it works. And with a good camera, the idea of the prosumer camera type, that's affordable but still looks professional, that kind of thing. You can really get some just very cool shots. And this movie is loaded with that. I mean, even if I didn't like the plot, which I enjoyed, it is a great looking film. And some of that is the photography, and some of that is just good editing and good management of space. The movie is set on a 60-acre farm, and it feels big. It would be very easy if you were on this one location to make it feel very claustrophobic, and it doesn't. It is definitely confined. It feels confined, but it doesn't feel tight. It's unnerving in the way that being like out in a large farm field feels. Because if you're in the dead center of it and you're not near a major highway, those fields can feel like they fucking go on forever. You start reading about people getting lost in cornrows, and it kind of makes sense, actually, because sometimes the massiveness of a space is oppressive in a paradoxical kind of way.
And I've been trying to sell you on a Twilight Zone concept, so I'm going to say it here. You will get a Twilight Zone vibe throughout the film that I can only describe as confinement without walls.
Yeah, it is. It's very much a translucent fishbowl of a movie, if that makes any sense.
It's a
good
descriptor there, my friend.
Translucent fishbowl of a movie. Now that you're bringing it up, and I guess this is really an interesting point. This movie does feel kind of like a long episode of The Twilight Zone in a way, and not in a way to like deride and say, oh, it's they've done it before. Because if you've seen horror movies, you've seen horror movies. You're well aware of the tropes. But I think that this movie does that really well. It has that Twilight Zone-y feeling where it is more about the questions asked than the questions answered. I love how a lot of, that and Night Gallery and The Outer Limits to an extent. Yes, they do answer your questions. They do conclude.
Yes.
But that doesn't make you feel any better about it. I've just got to say, like, if you have some time, and I know you do because you're a horror movie fan and you will go and seek out good horror movies. If you've got some time and you want to watch something that you are not expecting, I'm going to say Reset is the film to go watch. We can only dance around this for so long before we have to give it the Fright Lab thumbs up. Like, this movie is well worth your time. And one thing I love about it, you talked about the 75, 77 minute runtime. It's in and out fast. It is a movie that is very economical in the way it moves. It does not waste time. It does not linger in long shots it doesn't need. I love a good, I like epic films, but I like a good punchy film. I like a film that is a quick fight. And this movie does that really, really well. Joe, before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts, any recommendations you want to make about watching this film?
Get yourself some popcorn, pour yourself a beverage of choice, and think of this film as a good warm-up to the rest of your weekend or the rest of your evening. You could watch this in the afternoon like we did, and 70 minutes, you're done. So from that perspective, it really does feel like a serialized episode, more so than a film, but it's very effective. And you can see this in the trailer. You've got monsters, you've got darkness, you've got weapons, and you've got a very small cast that is very focused and gets to the point. I really appreciate that about this film, and I think you will enjoy it. I think you're going to get more from it than the trailer promises. We did. And that's as much as I can say without spoiling the film more directly.
Exactly. Well said, sir. Well said. So, with that, go watch Reset. Go do that. Next part, stay tuned, because we've got an interview with the director, writer, producer of Reset coming up very, very soon. We'll be sure to give you an announcement of when that's going to come out. Before we sign off for the night, I want to give a great big shout out to Erica Ayers over at Gold Dust PR. She did reach out to us and ask us to cover the film. As always, we are not being compensated, so this is something that we are doing because we believe in indie media and we want to help out new producers and independent producers. Erica very kindly sent over a screener for this movie for us to watch. And so, Erica, thank you. We really do appreciate it, and thank you for, deciding to take a risk on a bunch of guys who just love this sort of thing. So with that, as always, The Fright Lab is written and researched by me, Lucas Yoakum. It is produced, engineered, and tolerated to an alarming extent by the one and only Joseph Wren. We appreciate each and every one of you, and we will talk to you all again very soon.
That's Fright Lab for you.